Hello and welcome to Tiger Vision. We are Duval. I am Mondre Allen. Happy to be here with you, episode 25 with the coach. Coach, coming off a wonderful weekend. How you feeling, brother?
One day, one game at a time. We got another good weekend coming up with some tough opponents. So they're always tough in the SIAC, but definitely last weekend, Saturday and Monday were good. Glad to be home. Glad to have the students back. So hopefully we have a packed gym, man. That's what I'm really excited about. Playing this past weekend was the first time, in a minute to really get some adversity, some hostility on the road where you're trying to get a road kill in front of a packed house. And so glad to be back home to have our fans out in the jungle on Saturday and Monday.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For those that are not aware, our Tigers are sitting with an overall record of 11-5. That is a 69% win percentage, 68.8 if we want to be technical, but 69% of our games are coming out with the good guys on top. 7-2 record in conference. That is 78% of our games are coming out with the good guys on top. 5-0 at home. So we have done a fantastic job of protecting the house. And man, it certainly feels like this could be a very, very special season for the Tigers, coach. Championships are not won in December and January, but we got to celebrate these milestones along the way. How are you feeling right now about the team and the journey that you guys have taken so far?
I feel it's just that it's a journey, from where we started the season with 2 opening season wins over some Sunshine State schools who had never been done before in Edward Waters history, to starting the season 3-0 to facing some adversity, right after that, going on up to Atlanta and a crazy loss, I'll say, to Clayton State, and then following back up versus Columbus State, and just kind of getting better every day. And I still feel we have a lot of ways and a lot of opportunities to even be better. But I do like where we're headed. I do like the mentality of our team and how we try to get better. We find a way each game, each day to get better, to be better. I like their resolve, man. I really do. We played some tough ones. I remember coming on last week and we were coming off the Tuskegee win in overtime. And I just remember our guys in that huddle going into overtime saying, we've been here before. We know what to do. And I just think that speaks volumes to our guys and how we're growing and how we're learning. So obviously the job's not finished. We talk about it all the time, taking it game by game, day by day, and understanding you're only as good as your last play, practice, game, day, whatever it is. So we just want to continue to get better, man, and try to do something that's never been done.
When we look at it, last season, we were a 12-18 team and feeling very optimistic. If you look at how last season ended, coming with that. Now this season already with 11 wins at this point in the season, still a lot of basketball left to be played. This could very easily, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, could be 20 plus wins on the season. That would be, I would think that would be a great year. Coach, talk about what were some of your goals coming into the season, the start of the season. I know, every year you're trying to win a championship. Every year you're trying to get to the D2 national tournament and go win it. But what were some of the goals that you guys talked about with some of the guys that kind of set the tone for having such a great start to the year?
It's about leaving a legacy, man. We looked up at those banners that are in our gym, and we realized that we haven't had one since 2007. Whatever division, conference you want to talk, we haven't had one since 2007. So we wanted to do something that's never been done. We wanted to leave a legacy, and that's all we talked about. Whatever that legacy means for us. So it means playing for the brother next to us. It means being leaders. We talk about basketball wins, yes, but we talk about being leaders in this community and on this campus. Like, so we want to be winners in the community, on the campus, in the classroom. And so all of those things have been the foundation of what you're seeing right now. And there's still more work to be done. And yes, we felt we put together a team that could compete and have a chance to win in the SIAC. And we wanted depth, and we wanted guys that played the right way, guys that could do multiple things, play multiple positions, but good student athletes, good young men who you want to be around every day. And I think, we've done a good job with that. But again, like I say, there's more work to be done. We're not at the finish line yet. And all the stuff that we may talk about later, where we are right now, if we're content on where we are right now, then we won't get to the finish line of what we want to do and where we want to be.
100%. Coach, looking across at this past weekend, just want to make sure that we catch everybody up. Coming away with some great road wins. We mentioned the Tuskegee win at home, but 2 fantastic road wins in a very, very tough place to play. When you talk about on Saturday winning against Fort Valley at Fort Valley, 87-83, a high-scoring game, very dominant performance in the second half, and we pull out with a win there. And then on Monday, we're at Albany State and get a 74-64 win right there. We always talk about teams that know how to win. Do you see some maturity coming in from this team of learning how to close out some of these close games?
We do, man. We see a lot of maturity. And like we just have to say and find a way. Whatever that way is, sometimes it means it's going to have to be on the defensive end. Sometimes it means we got to make shots. Saturday at Fort Valley, we had to make shots, right? We couldn't get stops the way we normally did. They shot higher percentage from 3 and from the field than we normally allow. So we had to make buckets and get buckets, and that's a testament to Fort Valley. They're a really good home team, so to come into their arena and get a victory was really big. And we shot 49% from the field. We shot 53 from 3, and we didn't miss a free throw. So those were keys to us winning that game and scoring those amount of points. Whether you talk about, Miles Halston really carried us down the stretch, like a freshman. He hit 4 straight threes, like 4 straight possessions of threes, like with hands in his face, like that. Those were key moments. And then, you get key steals or key defensive moments, even though we didn't play the defense that we normally are accustomed to playing. And you get 4 guys that were in double figures. Like I said, Miles had 22 and 8, and you had, K4, Christian Ford with 18, and Prince with 16, and Amari Floyd with 10. So that was a really big test coming back after the break and then going on the road on our side of the division, our conference. Like, our side is very tough, and we knew it was going to be a tough game, and we were able to withstand it, on Saturday, which then led to Monday. And every game in this conference is tough. Every coach is tough, but what Coach Gale brings with his Albany State group, and they were kind of tied with us for that moment, all kind of right at that second spot. So we knew it was going to be a battle, gritty team, and only up 2 at halftime, but we really kind of did a great job defensively the second half of the game, especially starting out the second half, and kind of took control of the game and withstand a little run, towards the end. And again, we shot the ball really well. We were very efficient, 16 assists, shot 47 from the field, 47 from 3. And again, you talk about 2 weekend games on the road. We didn't miss a free throw all weekend. Like, that says a lot of how you can close out games and win games. And again, have another 4 guys in double figures. Mari Floyd, who hit 4 threes that game, he had 20 points and 5 assists. Prince had 14. Christian Ford had 13 and 5 assists, and Jacoby had 10 and 5 assists. And although he wasn't in double figures, Miles did a great job having 9 points and 9 rebounds. So just great efforts. And, we can talk about other little moments and other guys. RJ Nord has really stepped up, coming off the bench and providing us sparks, along him and Deshaun Edwards in these 2 games. And, we were a little banged up. So to get those 2 wins were really huge for us.
For sure. We mentioned the standings. You mentioned currently being second in the SIAC right now. It is Clark leading the way, although they are 10-5 and we are 11-5 when it comes to a overall record. They are 7-1 in the conference as of today, and we are 7-2, closely followed by Morehouse in the conference, sitting at 6-2. More to talk about those 2 teams coming up later on in the show. But you want to talk about how tough the conference is, even overall in the overall landscape. You got Clark sitting at 10-5, Edward Waters sitting at 11-5, Miles sitting at 12-3, and there is Kentucky State battling away at 9-7. So you got a lot of teams. I mean, Morehouse at 8-7, Alabama, Albany State at 9-7. You got a lot of teams in the positive win column, and people may look at it and say, "Oh, well, Kentucky State or Albany State, they got 7 losses." These are teams that are playing good competition,
Yes.
right, and still above 500 and playing well in conference. Coach, this is year 2 in the SIAC for you. You care to talk about at all about what you've learned from battling it out and coaching against some of these great coaches in conference?
Every game is a battle. You better bring your hard hat. And every game has its own nuance for what that coach likes to do and wants to do. And you better be able to win on the road. Like that's what you got to be able to do in this league. I think that's what you learn. You learn about the toughness. You better have a tough group, mentally and physically. Like there can be some banging going on in our league on any given night, and you better be able to withstand the banging, and you better have some depth because of the way playing on Saturday, Mondays, and every conference is playing kind of whether it's Thursday, Saturday, whatever the case may be. But you better have some depth to withstand little nicks and bumps. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. And I think we said this when I first got in this conference. We had our first initial show. This conference does not get enough respect for the players and the coaches that are in this conference. Like you talk about what Alfred George is doing at Clark. You talk about what Coach Witt has done at Morehouse. You talk about Benji Taylor at Tuskegee. And I don't think people realize that man was the head coach of Hawaii at Chicago State and won at those places, D1 places. Or you talk about Travis Lewis, who's not a head coach at Central State, and what he's doing. Or Dr. Jamal Jackson at Kentucky State, or what Coach Gale did at St. Thomas before he was at Albany State. Or Montez Robinson, who I worked for, who was the head coach at Alcorn State. Like, and I can keep going on and on and on. Now the coaches in this conference of how well coached they are. And we talked about one we just lost, a legend in the game. Horace Broughton at Savannah State, and what he was able to do in his 20 years there. So we don't get enough credit. This conference just doesn't get enough credit for what we're able to do and what we've accomplished.
Could we see this being the year? We saw last year we got 2 teams. Could that become a regular thing where we see 2 or maybe more teams make it into the national tournament?
If we continue to show ourselves, not just in conference, but out of conference, I think it definitely could be that way. Alfred and Clark and them did a great job last year, not just what they were able to do in conference, but out of conference. You had Benedict last year, who was nationally ranked. Those are the things that matter to the people who don't get an inside look or don't spend enough time watching SIAC basketball. So those are the things that we're going to really have to do.
Now, I'll tell you what I would absolutely love to see if a challenge was started and there was a SIAC Peach Belt Challenge. We kind of got one right now with the Clayton State Classic at Clayton State. I would love to see that expanded and have both leagues officially adopt that, and maybe Clayton State continue to host, or maybe the hosts start to rotate. I think that would be great. I would love to to see the CIAA get involved. That may be a little bit harder to do with teams a little farther north. But I would love to see some great classics coming on, especially between the Peach Belt and the SIC, because I feel like traveling wise geography, I think it works. Is that something that you think that teams could possibly embrace, or the league would possibly embrace? And if does it help the SIAC? Does it hurt the Peach Belt? I know there could be some politics going on there, but I feel like it's great basketball. As a fan, I'm just speaking from a fan perspective. When I see those teams, it's great matchup. I would love to see Miles versus North Georgia, right? I would love to see. Those are matchups that we don't get the chance to see, but a lot of quality players on the floor.
I think it's something that definitely has to be looked into. And the SIAC has done it. Unfortunately, a lot of times we are the people that have to travel. And what I would ask and say is, if we're going to do this, then we got to really rotate it.
I agree.
And let our HBCU host it 1 out of the 4 years, if we're going to have those 4 teams, because that's really huge. It helps the environment, and it helps that team, whoever it may be in the SIAC or HBCU. But I think that's really huge, and it can show others what this conference is about.
For sure.
We were able to have 2, our exempt tournament at the beginning of the season, where it was us in Spring Hill, at Rollins, where we played Rollins and Florida Tech, and then the Peach Belt SIAC Challenge, where it was us and Miles versus Clayton and Columbus State. So I think it's something that we really need to look more into. And obviously there's some challenges, whether, conference games, the conference schedule, but definitely something to look into that people would enjoy.
Would love to see it. Let's give it to the fans. I think you got to play games that the fans would love to see. I think fans and recruits, for that matter, we're talking about guys that are recruiting in the same vicinities, the same areas, the same types of kids. Whether people know that or not, that is certainly the case. I think if you go to June live period, whether you are in Florida or Georgia, you're going to see a good majority of those schools out recruiting. So same thing with the JUCO jamborees in those areas in the Southeast. You're going to get all those schools that are recruiting those areas. I think it would be great to see that. Maybe I'll write my congressman and see if we can get that to go. But I thought that would be neat. But second right now in the SIC, and I got to ask this. I know you expect it. And not only do you expect it, I know you prepare for it. But is there something a little bit surreal about seeing your name there in the standings, at the top of the standings, being one of the top teams in the conference right now, and knowing that all the work that you've put in up until this point, and I know that path maybe more than some others, that goes back a long time before you got here, before you even got to Voorhees, that brings you to this moment of saying, yep, I can really do it. I can really do it at this level, not just in high school, but at the college level, not just as an assistant, but as a head coach. Is it a little surreal at times to see your university right there at the top battling it out?
Surreal, I don't know if that's the answer or that's the word I want to use, but I just want to say it's the faith that you have to have. I'm a firm believer in God, and I'm only here because this is where God felt I should be and placed me here with my prayers, and it's been because of Him, man. To be honest with you, that I'm even that we're where we are as a team, and I'm even here. But I think the surreal part is the amount of work. Not just myself, we wouldn't be where we are if it was just talking about me. But you talk about our staff, like Coach Reedy and Britt and Larry and Chuck and these players, like the amount of work we ask them to do every day, not just on the court. Like we ask them to be student athletes. We ask them to do community service. We ask them to do a bunch of things. And at our level, we're not at the Division I level. So we're not flying on planes. So we're asking them to do a bunch of things. So it's the faith that we were going to get here. Now, personally, that I wanted it to be last year. If you want to ask me,
right?
You got to understand that it's a process. And to be honest with you, we're still not where we can be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's that's why we just we're grinding. And I know that's not a word a lot of people like to hear, but it's just the work we want to put in every day to try to be better. Because we feel if we get better individually, collectively, then we can be right where we are, but now at the end of the season, and even better, if that makes sense. To leave that legacy where those guys can come back with their families as graduates of EWU and say, we were able to do that right there. That's something they'll never forget, ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we look at it, Coach, and we talk about the record and the standings and where you are and all that stuff, a lot of people may not know how many games have you even been able to play where you've been completely healthy.
It's I think we've had a full roster 3-4 games, maybe.
Right. So there is room to continue to improve. I definitely see that. But you mentioned something that I think needs to be discussed a lot more. And you talked about the challenge to be student athletes. And I don't think it's talked about enough. I think in basketball conversations, there's too much conversation about the transfer portal, way too much conversation about NIL, and just my quick soapbox, because I don't care if they gave you $600,000 a year or $700,000 a year. If you're not going to the NBA, which many college basketball players or not, it doesn't matter how much money they gave you for those 3 or 4 years. Sure, it's nice. I love it. I'm happy players are getting it. However, you're going to go get a job after you're done. Mm-hmm. And I feel for the student athletes who are getting large quantities of income from NIL, graduate, and now in the workforce, you're going to work a regular job and you're going to get 10% of that $800,000 salary that you were getting in NIL. And are you prepared for that?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I don't have any problem with these young men and women getting money. Schools have been making a lot of money off the backs of these young men and women. But we need to prepare them. Teaching them about taxes, about saving. And just what you said, there are a lot of these young men and women who are going to make more money in these 4 to 5 years.
Yes.
Than maybe they ever will.
Yes.
And how mentally are you prepared to handle that?
Yes.
When you hit 30 and say, at 21, I was making $2 million. And now I make 200,000.
If that.
Right. I was just,
200,000 is a great salary.
But if you made 2 million,
I'm just going to let's use the average. I believe the average American household or the average American brings home close to $60,000. I think it's like $54,000 or $56,000. So, first job out of college, you go from making, like you said, $700,000, $800,000, $500,000, $60,000.
Right. So I think that's where we have to make sure we're doing our job as universities, athletic directors, coaches, whatever programs, that it doesn't just become, well, let me get this young man or woman for this amount of money for us to get wins. Because it's more than just that. And like we said, we do have, it's about student athletes, right? I'm thinking right now about my guys who were seniors who are talking about their internships and making sure they have it done so they can graduate. Like, that's big to be able to do an internship.
Yes.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
The challenge to be a great student athlete, and I think it's important, it doesn't get talked about enough. And I got to put this up because I love what is happening at EWU when it comes to academic success and what is happening with some of the student athletes at EWU. And this is, of course, of all athletics. If you look at the numbers here, we're talking about 60 student athletes earning a 4.0. Gabe, I'm proud of you, my boy. Proud of you, Gabe. I talk about you all the time and what you're achieving. And all of your former teammates have to hear it from me about what you're doing. Sorry, I just had to say that. I love that kid. Love him to life for what he's doing. 34 students, athletes have a 4.0 cumulative GPA. 231 student athletes earned a 3.0 or above GPA. That is awesome. And then 202 student athletes have a 3.0 or above cumulative GPA. I mean, we're talking about, why is this important? And I've heard the saying go, C's get degrees. However, those same C's may not get you into grad school. You're going to need a real GPA to get into grad school. And I've been having the conversation with my own son of, I'm sorry, kiddo, but depending on your major, for some of you who are listening, depending on your major, you really need to look at the job market, because some of you, it is almost a necessity that you go to grad school.
Yes.
And get an advanced degree. So those GPAs matter because it cycles and you have to play the same admissions game all over again to get into grad school and do your grad work. So I love the fact that since I have known you, regardless of level, high school, college, NAIA, now to Division II, academics has always been a focal point for the young men that have been under your leadership. I think that's fantastic, and you deserve a lot of flowers for making that a priority for these young men.
Well, I think, we do a great job of recognizing it and making sure that our players understand the importance of it, right? But I also think you have to be in line with a institution and leadership who also see that. So kudos have to go to Dr. Rich and her team and Dr. Vison, the president, because I had this conversation on the road with another coach, and we were talking about, jobs and whatever. And he just said, I told him, I said, I don't care where you are. You could be a middle school coach. You could be an AAU coach in somebody's program. But your vision of who you are and what you believe in has to line up with the people in charge, right? Because if it doesn't, at some point, it's not going to match.
Yep.
And I think that's why we have had some success too, because their vision of being student athletes matched my vision of being student athletes, right? Mm-hmm. And the type of young men that we want to bring in to this institution. Not just, we want guys who can help us win games. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not trying to don't find somebody who's got a 4.0 that can't play. But there are people out there who are true student athletes that can do both. And kudos to Dr. Rich and her staff for the vision of our athletic program and what we're doing. Because it's not like our student population is 10,000 people. So when you see those numbers, understand we're still a private, small, not very small, but we're still small when we talk about our enrollment. We aren't 5,000 students, right? So,
right. I love it. I am a fan of the administration. I rarely know who the president of the school is, but I am a fan of Dr. Vison and what he's doing. He's so passionate about
Came to our road game at Albany State, cheering us on.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
It doesn't surprise me, man. Hey, listen, I saw Dr. Faison with the J's on and the sweatsuit. He was sharp, man. Brother was sharp. But he, I love that to see that. I feel like the student athletes need to see him. The student body needs to see it as such a special thing. And I hope nobody takes it for granted that they get to see him front and center at games and being that passionate but also visible leader. Because if you look around the landscape of most universities, even my home school, University of Louisville, you're definitely going to see the head coach. You may or may not see the athletic director. A lot of times you will. You never see the president. But he is visible and leading from the front, which I like. Yeah. I like leaders who lead from the front. And he does that. Kudos to him. Kudos to everybody, all the 200 plus students with a 3.0 or above. Kudos to you, and definitely kudos to the 60 plus with a 4.0. You deserve the time that we took, the 5 minutes that we took to fully talk about this. You deserve every second of it, because that's what this is about. It's what basketball used to be about, was getting a degree. And I love that you guys do that. We got more kudos for the team. We're getting some recognition that I felt like we knew would come. I'll leave people alone because it's like they didn't pay attention to the recruiting class that came in, and the preseason ranking didn't reflect the work that was done. And I'll have my time to make sure that everybody knows how I feel about that. However, HBCU Hoops Weekly did a ranking, and out of all of the HBCU NCAA Division II and NAIA programs, a couple of familiar names. Out of the top 10, Miles comes in at number 4, Clark comes in at number 5, and number 6 in the country, the Edward Waters Tigers. Coach, what are your thoughts about people starting to catch on to what's going on in Jacksonville?
It goes but to what we said at the end of practice today. We've got to learn to be the hunted instead of the hunter. And
right.
Just means we've done some things right, but we got to continue to do some things right, because everybody's going to bring their A game. You like those accolades because that means, guys are playing the right way. We're winning games, but it also means that somebody's probably putting that little poll up and saying, "Oh, we played a number 16 ranked team. We better than them." So they coming with. I can assure you, our 2 opponents this weekend are probably saying something about that.
You better believe it. And as we mentioned that, let's talk about it and let's preview what we got coming up. I tell you, on Saturday, January 18th at 3 p.m., there is no place else you would rather be than in Jacksonville, Florida, on EWU's campus as the Morehouse Tigers come in. I won't say what I was going to say, to come in and compete. It's going to be a very competitive game and a great contest. But, Coach, do you care to give us a breakdown? Morehouse is one of those teams. In all seriousness, I'll joke around. I'll give them a hard time. But Morehouse is one of those teams year in and year out. They're at the top of the league. At the top in the regular season, and when I say at the top, in one of those top spots, usually top 3 in the league. Same thing in the conference tournament. They typically finish in one of those top 3 spots. You got them coming in on Saturday at 3 p.m. Give us a breakdown of what we can expect to see from the Maroon Tigers on Saturday.
Definitely well coached. Coach Witt does a great job with those young men. A little bit different team than last year. They were a lot. They still have length, but wider bodies. If I guess if I want to put it, they don't have as much of that this year, but they have length all around the floor. We're gonna have to control the glass first, them, and keep them off the glass. We're gonna have to make sure we don't turn the ball over and get them live ball turnover, points off live ball turnovers, and we're just gonna have to execute. They do a good job defensively, especially of switching some things up. They do a little bit more pressure in the basketball than they have before. So we've got to be ready to play. It's going to be a battle. If anybody saw, their team that they beat Miles at home after the break, and if you watch that game, it was physical. It was physical. So we've got to come ready to play. And I think our guys will. I think we'll step up to the challenge, and it'll be a great game. I mean, we know what it was last year at home. They got us in their place. I didn't like the way we played the second half. And then it was a battle again in the conference tournament, which led them to the semifinals as they beat us in the quarterfinals. And, yeah, we might have been banged up, but you wouldn't have known that we were missing, a couple of guys and, by the way that game went. So it should be a battle. Should be a great one.
Always a great one coming in, but that's not all. Our fans will get another opportunity. I don't know who did this. Like we gotta stop doing this back to back, man. These are tough games. These are knockdown. Last year, we're talking about both games went down to the last possession.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find the video from my call of the Morehouse game and play it as you hear the place going crazy and my voice cracking and all kinds of stuff. Monday, coming off the Morehouse game on Saturday, Monday, 7:30 p.m. I mean, this is prime time. We are battling Monday Night Football here. Monday at 7:30, and you have Clark Atlanta coming in, who's currently sitting at number 1 in the conference.
Defending conference champs.
Hey, you know what I've always said? If you want to be the man, you gotta beat the man.
In the words of Ric
Flair. Absolutely. But tell us about that Clark Atlanta game when Alfred Jordan bringing his group in here.
Just another battle. Those guys are, again, well coached, athletic. Again, going to have to control the glass, going to have to execute. Both games versus them last year came down to the wire. Them hitting a game-winning shot at the buzzer at their place, us missing a shot at the buzzer at our place last possession. So it should be another great one. It's a weekend of basketball of 3 good basketball teams battling out for a chance to sit atop the SIAC, head into the middle of January on into February. Nothing but respect for both programs. As us and Allen, the 2 newest programs in the SIAC, so to speak, Division II, like you look at those 2 programs and their history, you go back to what Clark did in the early 2000s and where they won the conference and made noise in the D2 tournament, right? To what they were able to do last year, and obviously to what Coach McAfee and Coach Grady Brewer and now Coach Witt have done at Morehouse, like NBA pros, Walker and now current athletic director at Morehouse, Harold Ellis. So to be able to battle those 2 story programs, but it's like that in the SIAC period, man, whether it's Tuskegee, Lemoyne on, like I can keep going on down a list of programs where you're just like, man, it's a battle every night, and nothing changes this Saturday and Monday facing off versus Morehouse and Clark.
Want to make sure we're going to need everybody. It is all hands on deck.
And let me add this. I know we're talking men's, but like Monday is also a battle for I want to say the top spot on the women's side between Clark and Edward Waters too. So like, don't just wait to 7:30, like 5:30. Have your butt in the seats.
Get there early. Have your popcorn ready. Yeah, it will be an absolute battle. I won't be able to be there this year. I'm traveling on my way to Dayton, Ohio to call some games there. But last year, I mean, it was a unbelievable environment. And I want to see it packed out even more because now you got men's and women's at Edward Waters fighting for the top spot in the conference or close to the top spot in the conference. So, um, got to come on and cheer in the right Tigers. It'll be a lot of big cats in the building, but we want the right ones to come out with a victory on Saturday and Monday. So, need everybody to do it. Will we have it? Will there be a spirit night? I didn't see anything on
Something
the.
should be coming out soon, so you'll probably start seeing something, if not tonight in the morning. But it should be a raucous environment. I'll just say that.
Hey, Reedy. I tell you, man. Hard time, and a long way to go. But no, I think it's going to be great, and we'll get that done. Some more accolades. We got the HBCU Plus Team of the Week. Got the Edward Waters University here, brought to you by the HBCU All-Star Game coming up. They do a fantastic job there.
Yes, they do. Travis Williams. I mean, obviously, every year at the Final Four, they pick HBCU players, guys who have no more eligibility, Division I and Division II, to go down and play All-Star Game. And I was able to go last year and see it, and it's a great thing to watch and a great environment. And they choose coaches, out of those both divisions. If I'm not mistaken, Alfred Jordan was one of the coaches last year, or part of one of the staffs. So a great thing. And then, they even take some of those guys. They went overseas to play some games. And, I think I heard Travis Williams say out of the number of years they've done it since the Final Four was in New Orleans, so maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they have numerous guys who are playing, whether G League or overseas, even a couple of guys that are playing, Ashanti Price, who played at Benedict last year, is actually playing for the Harlem Globetrotters. So you've got guys who played, in this HBCU All-Star Game who are getting opportunities because of what he's able to do. And, yes, it could be bulletin board material. We're excited. I'm thankful that we had a chance to be the team of the week, but it puts more eyes on HBCUs, because he does one for each conference or independent team in Division I and Division II, and that's really big for us.
Coach, I do want to bring this up. I know it's something that you are passionate about. Looking at how well Edward Waters is doing, Clark, Miles, but also Norfolk State.
Yep.
Doing really well. Some other guys battling. Our good friend Yasir Roseman, associate head coach at Indiana. They don't get a lot of credit. They are undefeated at home, having a good season. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I had to ask you, how do you feel like the perception is today for Black coaches in college basketball? Do you feel like it's getting better? Is there still more to go? Or what is your assessment as we see some coaches doing well? Penny Hardaway took a lot of flack. He's doing well. Our good friend CY, the associate head at Missouri, they've beaten 2 top 3 teams this season. Do you have any thoughts on how teams are doing? I know we normally just talk about your team, but how do you feel like our perception is doing across the landscape?
From where we were, it's definitely better. But are there ways to come? Definitely ways to go.
Yep.
Judge us on the same playing field, right? That's all we want. Judge us on the same playing field. Don't just say we're great recruiters, right? Say we're great coaches.
Yep.
That's we are great tacticians. We can get on the board with the best of them. You know, part of coaching college basketball is being able to do all of those things, especially as a head coach, but also being able to hire the right staff to help you do those things. So maybe you have a coach who's maybe he's not the best recruiter. Well, he better have some great recruiters on his staff. Or maybe he's not the best tactician, but he better have some great tacticians on his staff. But that means he's doing a great job. He's a great leader of men and knowing what he does know and what he doesn't know. You know, I've been blessed, man. Like in my time in college basketball, you know, we can talk about high school and how many assistants are not head coaches that, you know, in my tree, but I'm talking about the tree that I worked under in college basketball. And I look at what I've learned from these men that I was able to work for at Georgia Southern. And I tell people this of how I was able to grow. Mark Byington was the head coach of Georgia Southern. He's not a head coach of Vanderbilt. I think they have 2 or 3 losses right now his first year. Larry Dixon was on that staff. He's now assistant coach at NC State. Tim Kaine was on that staff. He's not an assistant coach at LSU. And Andrew Wilson was on that staff. He's not a head coach of VMI. And I think this season they're having one of their best seasons they've had in a long time, right? So to be able to learn from those guys to get me where I am now. But then I even go to Montez Robinson at Alcorn State. And you look at what Alex Ireland and I were on that staff together. If anybody's paying attention to NAIA basketball and what Dalton State is doing, he's on a roll.
Crushing.
They're ranked, RPI, strength, whatever you want to put in NAIA, they are there. And they're that good. Right? So being able to learn from those guys to even put me in a position right now to be where I am, just put us all on the same plane. Like when you talk about me and Alex, white, black, doesn't matter. Like we just talk hoops.
Yes.
Like, that's all. We all African American coaches just put us in the same category and let us talk hoops on a board about recruiting, about whatever it is.
100%. And got to get ready to close here in a second. And I'll say this. This is the opinion of Mondre Allen. Nobody else. And maybe this isn't the right platform to say it, but I just feel like it's appropriate to say University of South Florida, do the right thing. Give that job to Ben Fletcher for good.
Shout out to Ben Fletcher, man.
Shout out to
and
Ben.
That staff, period.
Yes. Let's do the right thing. They are, if I'm not mistaken, 6-2 at home, 2-2 in conference. You know, winning record so far this season, battling it out in conference. Give that job to Ben Fletcher. No, I don't want to see no interim tag. Let's get a contract. Let's get it done. He can do the job. So, Coach, that's all I have for today, man. Am I missing anything you want to make sure that we get to?
I think the only thing, man, is to pack this gym this weekend. Like that's what we need. That's what we want. Like because of the breaks, we haven't Tuskegee kids weren't back. Right before Christmas, we had Lane and Lemoyne on. Kids were going home. It was after final exams. Like, this is our opportunity, right? This is our opportunity to show we are Duval, right?
Let's go.
That's all I got, man.
The challenge has been laid down. And if the crowd is anything like last year, challenge accepted, and you guys will exceed that. But yeah, I want to see it packed where people are standing up close to the roof. Like let's pack it. Let's have the fire marshal get worried a little bit for how many people are in the gym. I agree. Pack it out. It's well deserved. Coach, wish I could be there for that one. I know how big these two games are, but I'll be peeking in at the score, and good luck to all of us. I hope we most importantly come into the games healthy and leave the games healthy, and compete well. I'm sure we will.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, that's our show for tonight. We appreciate everybody jumping on. Reedy, I even appreciate you, man. It's great seeing you, Reedy. Great seeing you, man. But no, man. Thank y'all for coming out, man. God bless you guys. Good night.